Over the radio, a nationalist announcer delivered Franco's final war communique.
En el día de hoy, cautivo y desarmado el Ejército Rojo, han alcanzado las tropas nacionales sus últimos objetivos militares. La guerra ha terminado. Burgos, 1 de abril de 1939, año de la victoria. El generalísimo Franco.
April 2nd, 1939, the day after the war's official end, was Palm Sunday. In Madrid, Generalissimo Franco went to lay a sword of victory in the church of Santa Barbara. It was the first of many triumphal occasions in which Franco and Spain celebrated the nationalist victory. What would Spain be like under Franco? The fighting was over, but the so-called National Crusade had a long way to run. Spain was to be transformed, but into an image of the past. After the turmoil of the Republic, the Spain of history was to be resurrected, ruled once more by the church, the oligarchy, the great landowners. There was to be a fatherland at once new and ancient, a nation united, obedient, purged of evil. Franco decreed, retroactively, that all who had opposed the nationalists would be answerable. Even pre-war political opponents were not to be spared. He saw the main threat in the working class, once triumphant, now prostrate. Here the purge must be most harsh. It began at once, among the new hordes of his captives. Nobody suspected of Republican sympathies was safe. Concentration camps all over Spain were swamped by hundreds of thousands of prisoners. The captives from the harbour at Alicante were brought here, to this barren place, which was then the concentration camp of Albatera. It is said that Franco personally ordered that there should be no photographs of the camp. When it had served its purpose, every trace of it was cleared away. All that remains today is an old hut used by the guards and a path once trodden by 30,000 arriving prisoners. But the camp can never be clear from the memories of those who survived Albatera.
The repression began right from the start. We were never considered human beings. That's the way it was under Franco. We were always considered as things, never as human beings.
Albatera was not just an internment camp. It was also a camp where people awaited selection for execution. Through the gate which used to stand here, the visitors arrived. These were the moments of terror, for these visitors were members of the Falange, who came to identify their enemies.
They were looking for people from their towns, or anyone else of note, anyone who'd been a volunteer or fought in the Republican Army, or anyone who'd been mayor or any other official in any Republican town in Spain. And they picked these people out right there and then. This one, this one, this one. And without more ado, just took them off. They took them away to their respective villages. Most of the time, these prisoners never reached their destination. What usually happened was that we heard the shots from here, and that was the end of them.
There were also executions within the camp. The prisoners were forced to watch them.
I remember the first executions. I'd been locked up in the punishment area. There were 3 lads that they shot. They'd lined us up at machine gun point. And one of the lads, a commissar, said to everyone, "Keep calm, comrades, don't make a move. They'll use it as an excuse to kill us all." And they shot him right there in front of us.
Nobody knows how many of the 30,000 who went into Albatera perished by execution or just callous neglect.
Most people know what the Nazi extermination camps were like. They've seen films of them. I think that the Albatera camp was in many ways like those extermination camps, except it was less systematic. Everything here was less organized.
In the concentration camps, persecution was still haphazard, but soon the policy of systematic repression began. The prison population increased by over 200,000 people. There were token trials, rapid sentences, executions. The terror lasted at this pitch for more than 4 years, longer than the war itself. Many, like Narciso Julián and Eduardo de Guzmán, suffered for much longer. Both were sentenced to death. Eduardo de Guzmán spent 9 years in prison. He and Narciso Julián, like many others, waited to be executed for over a year, never knowing if the next day was to be their last. Narciso Julián was to spend 25 years in prison. This part of the prison yard, the Yezerías, still holds special memories for him. In 1945, he met his daughter there. In 1965, 20 years later, he met his granddaughter in the same spot. But for nationalist families, the suppression of all dissent meant unity. Tomás Garicano Goñi, later one of Franco's ministers, found a solid logic in Franco's persecutions.
The repression was aimed at preventing any possible reaction from any communists or socialists still at liberty in Spain or living abroad in exile, in case they returned to Spain, to turn the situation on its heels and take power again.
As the corpse of José Antonio Primo de Rivera was carried from Alicante to Madrid, Republican supporters in villages along the road were shot without even the hearing the 15th century Inquisition had given its victims. Franco was hammering Spain into a political monolith without opposition. The Falange, which had stood for a revolutionary fascism, had already been forcibly integrated into an ultra-conservative one-party state. But the dead José Antonio, the charismatic leader of the Falange executed by the Republicans, was now appointed patron saint and martyr of the new Spain. Francisco Franco, El Caudillo, could safely share the leadership of Spain with a dead man who could not contradict the myth imposed on him. All other political movements were forbidden. Regional autonomy and diversity were obliterated. Such was Franco's version of national unity, and many in the Spanish middle class greeted it with rapture.
Las procesiones en aquellos momentos tenían un auge fenomenal.
There was an extraordinary boom in processions, Holy Week processions, and processions for just about every saint. They were packed with people marching along. There was a revival of all this sort of thing that had disappeared under the Republic. These things seemed important to us then. They gave us the impression of recovering something that we had lost.
Los valores religiosos, los valores patrióticos.
The religious values, patriotic values, the values of order, all these were restored.
Faltaron las libertades. Pero lógicamente los que teníamos una vida.
There was an absence of freedom, but logically, those of us that had well-ordered lives, those of us who were professionals and saw things from the personal viewpoint only, we felt very much at ease and happy.
In this ruined Spain, the first years of peace were even harder in their way than the war. The country lost hundreds of thousands of refugees who were forced to remain in exile. And in Spain, to the physical destruction were added famine, mass unemployment, impoverishment. Many thousands died of starvation. Thousands more were shot. For there was no magnanimity in Franco, no gift of reconciliation. And nationalists everywhere at every level became infected with their leaders' lust for revenge. What happened in Mas de los Matas happened throughout Spain. The Moliner family had worked this plot of land for many years. Juan Moliner was a young man in 1938. He and his family were socialists. When the nationalists swept into Aragon, they had fled with other refugees towards Valencia.
And when the war finished, Franco said we shouldn't be afraid to return to our villages. And of course, since we weren't guilty of anything, we came back. When we arrived here, they arrested us. They wouldn't even let us out of jail.
Moliner's father was imprisoned by the local Falange, who now control Mas de los Matas. Juan was never to see his father again. 40 years later, the memory of his death still pains him.
Of course I remember. Those were very critical moments, crucial moments. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And on top of it all, one has to live with those people, knowing that they had killed him. But you had to go on living with them without saying a word.
After every civil war, hatred is the real survivor, stifled behind closed doors, hidden in neighbors who avert their faces on the village street. The poison trickles down the years. So it was in Spain, where almost every family had a hatred to nurse. And yet, as time passed, locked minds began timidly to open again.
As my children grew up, they used to chide me because I'd been a Franco supporter. Mum, how on earth could you support Franco? I think that he saved us. How can you say that? Then they began bringing me books and books and more books, and I started to realize that it had been terrible, that there had been as many monstrosities on this side as there'd been on the other side, because I already knew about the other side. But I didn't know what had happened here. And so, gradually you evolve, and you realize that there is neither good nor evil, as they used to tell you, that you can think for yourself, that something you do not like, someone else may think is fine, that you are in no position to judge others, that someone can think one way while you think another, and he could be just as good a person as you. That is what my children taught me.